Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Today, I'm excited for the episode. I'm talking to an author, and he's also a voiceover artist. His name is Aaron Ryan. And what he does, he does a bunch of things, but one of the things that he mentioned is that he helps his fellow authors to avoid scams. So I'm interested to hear more about that a little bit later. But first, are you ready to rock, Aaron?
I'm ready to rock, Tim. Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So we always start off here in a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
Yeah, well, I have to say I'm predominantly an author, and so I have dual storyteller tracks right now. One is author, like writing books,
Mhm.
and the other one is a storyteller as a voiceover artist, and I get to tell other people's stories. I totally prefer telling my own, but telling other people's is what is currently paying the bills. So
Yeah.
that's the one that we that
It's
we
a
have to
it's a
highlight.
cover music, right?
It really is. Yeah, it's a cover song. I love being an author, but voiceovers, man, they used to be an exceptionally lucrative career, and I changed to voiceovers. I'd been doing them since '93 informally, but I pursued them formally in I think it was the fall of 2016,
Okay.
and it was a massive change from what I used to do, which was wedding videography, which is Latin for eternal torment. And I was so glad to be able to abandon that, but voiceovers became a real artistic and lucrative career pursuit that I've just loved. Unfortunately, it's on the decline
Mm.
because of things like AI and
Yep.
lowballing clients and the SAG after strike and whatever. But it's still an immensely fun pursuit. So
Okay. Yeah, voiceovers would be tough now, yeah, because there are lots of tools that will just clone your voice and boom, now that's done, right? It's too
yeah,
bad.
and it's sad but true.
So along that path though, not everything goes as planned and you've been self-employed for a long time now. I'm wondering, is there some sort of bad note that you could share with us that we can learn from?
A bad note. Well, um, gosh, I remember when I first started out in self-employment. That would have been 2007, and I wanted it so bad I could feel it in my teeth. I mean, I dreamt about it when I was sleeping, air quotes.
Hmm.
And there everything went wrong. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was basically Murphy's law of self-employment. So I got into video production, video editing, and the computer malfunctioned. It didn't have enough memory. The chip didn't work. Not enough, not fast enough hard drives, whatever. And I almost gave up. And a client that I had done some graphic design for said, uh, shared a quote, I think that's by Confucius, if I remember. And they said, the temptation to quit is always greatest just before your greatest success.
Mm.
That absolutely rocked my world because I felt like I was right here. I was really close and I just needed to push a little further and get over that hump. I'm so glad I did. I love self employment. Nobody can take it away from me. I rise and fall on my own merits. I run up things, up the flagpole, and I get to salute them. It is it's the single greatest thing that I've ever experienced next to marriage and kids.
Mm.
I'm so grateful that I get to do what I get to do in my office here every single day.
That's awesome. Yeah. I had a similar experience. Became self-employed, and it was good and then not good and then thought I was going to quit and then ended up having this crazy breakthrough. Like it is interesting how that works out, eh? And I've talked to other self-employed people that have been doing it for a long time, and it seems like most of us kind of come to that point, right? Like, because everything isn't awesome all the time, especially since we're not really taught or programmed on
Yeah.
how to work for yourself. Like you're programmed to work for somebody else, right? So it's a very different mindset, right?
Yeah, I was given some wonderful advice by in the voiceover community. There's a woman who is now an entrepreneur. She used to be a casting agent, but she shared this quote with me that I ended up turning into a plaque. It was so mind warping, just perspective altering. And she said, "Someone's endorsement of you or lack thereof has very little to do with your trajectory."
Yeah.
And I had to stop and say, "What was that? Say that again."
Mm.
And she shared it again, but it was like, I've dealt with the negative wedding videography clients that whittle down your price and then want you to still deliver this much. And then you don't, and they go straight to Yelp, and leave you a bad review. I've had the people who just don't get the book and they're not even sci-fi fans. So why would they? They don't want to, so they leave a negative review. I've had clients that said, I couldn't repair their old rusty videotape and transfer it. So they leave a negative review. And it's like, man, people are just really out for blood
Mm.
in on the client side of things. Sometimes you have to let all that stuff roll off your back. And that's something that you just learn intuitively as you go through the process. I've dealt with your kind before, chalk it up to sour grapes or whatever, and then move on.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed as well, is that the people that tend to try to, you know, get more for less, like cut the price down and all that stuff, and those really like lowballing clients, they do end up being the worst.
Yes,
And it is fascinating to me because on the other end, the clients that like don't even bark at your price and even offer to pay you more, right?
they're so
They
easy.
are they're easy. Yeah, it just
Yeah,
it blows my mind that like raising your price can work in so many different ways. And
yeah.
it's exactly opposite of what you would think, right? Not knowing anything about this, right? You'd think, I can't raise my price, no one's gonna be able to afford it. I have people arguing about my price right now. Raising my price is gonna be worse, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like perspective equals reality for so many people. And Apple gets a bad rap for just being overpriced,
Mm,
but Steve Jobs was right. They just work. The products just work. And I did the same thing where I was raising my price, and whether you're $500 higher or you're $1,000 higher than the next guy, well, perhaps you should go to the next guy then.
yeah.
It really is no skin off my back or skin off my nose or whatever the expression is. You raise your price because there's a perceived value in your services. If you are lowballing, people are going to go, why are you 300 and they are all 1,000?
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. And so I've done the same thing, and you're absolutely right. The people that whittle down your prices and perceive the value of what you're offering them as little are going to be the most work, the hardest to work with, and they're just going to be a pain. Happens every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I guess the other big benefit of having your prices nice and high is that you get lots of margin to be able to do like the best work you can do, right? It's not
Yeah,
like because I do know, I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, imagine that you've priced something and all of a sudden this client, it's just not. I mean, maybe it's not even them. Maybe it's just you. You're just like, I don't like what I'm doing exactly. I would love to be able to change this, but you're out of hours. Like, I mean, you've already lost money on this. So are you going to do it? On the other hand, if you've charged a really good amount and you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to give this another go because I really want to do something good and I've got the time and the money to do it. Like you're going to be
yeah.
able to deliver a much better product to the end client because you've got so much margin in it, right?
Yeah, totally. It's you're building into the margin is the correct word. You're building margin into it so that you can insulate yourself against going in the red.
Hmm.
However, there's other factors at play too, and just you have a goodwill aspect that you're constantly trying to put into
Yes.
every project that you do. And so you want to go above and beyond because that's just your nature. You want to please your clients. You're trying to earn a positive review, and reviews speak louder than words. It's you can't win with everybody, but overall there's kind of this net effect of an equilibrium as you continue to just do good work, and then the work speaks for itself. So um, it does take a while to kind of reach that equilibrium, though. I noticed it
It
took me a few
does.
years to get there.
Yeah. I like the word you use with the goodwill because I mean, when you think about it on the other side of it, the client that is paying you, more than you even asked for, they are actually putting goodwill towards you, right? Like,
Yeah,
and whereas the one that's like cutting your price down and all that stuff, they are doing the opposite. They're not like putting in that goodwill towards you. So that reciprocation is not really there. Like, I mean, if a client is treating you really well, you're going to treat them really well and vice versa, right?
yeah, and I think that just goes back to the perceived value. Is if they see your price at 1,600, and that's your stated price, and they just
Mhm.
they don't balk at that. But you've got another client that sees the price as it should be to them for their budget, and
Yeah,
so it's for their budgetary purposes, which are completely outside your control.
absolutely.
um, they want $900, so that's what they want to pay, but then they still will expect that 1,600 because it is perception equals reality. The people who are like, yeah, 1,600, cool, no problem, here's a check. And then they just back off and let you work your wonders, and you're Scotty to Captain Kirk in the Enterprise. You're going, working miracles right and left for them because they perceive that value. You hardly even have to do the work. They already perceive the value.
Wow. That reminds me of early on in my journey, I had some sales trainers, and one of them said that the client's objection is a reflection of your own objection. And I thought that was interesting to think about. Like, I mean, if a client is like, oh, I don't, maybe they're like, oh, I don't want to buy this online. I don't want to put my credit card in online or something like that, right? Well, they would always ask, well, do you use credit cards online? And they'd say no. You're like, oh,
Ah,
interesting. So the way
yeah.
that you think about things, the way that you think about the value of what you're offering is going to be what they're going to argue as well. And oftentimes you do see that playing out, right? I mean, if you're willing, like you just said, to go lower on your price, well, they're going to take advantage of you. But if you just
Yeah.
don't go lower, if you're like, no, 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 this is what it's worth, then if they don't want it, then they're going to go somewhere else. But they're going to, if they do want it, then they'll pay it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a recent example of that, I have a really old laptop. I mean, I'm a PC guy by trade. That is my primary daily driver is a PC, but we love our Mac stuff at home. We love our Apple
Hmm.
iPhones and watches and iPads and all that, and Apple TV. But I have an old Microsoft Surface laptop, which is one that detaches so it becomes a tablet.
Yeah.
And boy, when I bought that, it was close to 3 grand. Now somebody, I've got it down to like $800 on Craigslist, and it's not selling. It's still a powerhouse, which blows me away that it's not selling. But someone said, you're never going to get 800 for this. I see a listing right here for the same exact model for 600, and I'm going to go. My response, just default response is, well, go ahead and buy the $600 one. I mean, that's the value that you've placed on it.
Yeah.
If $200 is, and there is a difference in the tech specs between the one you're seeing and the one that I have, always is. But they don't see that value. That the value that they placed on it is projected purely from what's currently in their wallet, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Oh man, so good. So let's talk a little bit about getting fans then. So how do you, and I mean, hey, the world has changed a lot in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
But how
it
do
has.
you,
Huh.
yeah, well, hey, way back 20 years ago, what did you have to do to get a client to get someone to watch you? You had to take out an ad somewhere, probably.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, social media is everywhere, but I think that the other side of that is that the audience is there, but they're not necessarily fans of you. And how do you make them a fan?
Well, I think one of the ways that you develop fandom, I think, and it's such a weird word because I'm a fairly humble guy, and you look at the word fan, and I just picture these adoring throngs of people that don't
Mm,
care what you do, don't care what you say. They just love the product that you put out, and it's almost borderline worship,
yeah.
really kind of just creepy, like, ugh. Um, but the way that you, I think, start that fandom is you work, for me at least, what's worked is you work or you put out good information and valuable consult and counsel and advice to your contemporaries, to your colleagues,
Yeah.
because no one's going to help a fellow author better than a fellow author. So I'm offering things of value to authors, like, look out for these scams. Here's some good advice on choosing a traditional publisher or being indie self-pubbed. Do you want to choose Ingram Spark, or do you want to publish through KDP? Do you want to use Barnes and Noble Press? Do you publish wide? Do you publish exclusive? And there's all kinds of things. I just released a 20-minute video 2 days ago, I think. Or actually it was Monday, because we wouldn't dare publish it on Super Bowl Sunday. Like,
Ha.
no one would know about it. Uh, but you develop this fandom because there are people who will speak for you then in your circles. Like, yes, I'm an author and I work with great authors like Aaron Ryan. He's a great guy, and here's his stuff. On the flip side, with readers, you're just the product really has to speak for you. Yes, I've got branding. Yes, I've focused on that and refined that. But people know Stephen King because of Stephen King's books, and the books tell you about Stephen King. So my focus is just simply writing good books telling people about the books and trying as hard as I can to get the books in people's hands through a variety of means. And I
Mm.
will explore the most, nondescript, unknown, back alley way of trying to get my book into people's hands that I can, because I'm a believer in possibilities. And you want to try all these new, avenues of reaching readers. It's certainly not easy. It certainly costs. It's all an investment, but it's so worth it in the end. If just one person that you happen to reach is an influencer,
Yeah.
or one person you happen to reach has a great big circle of people that they're going to then tell, about this book, or it's wonderful. And then the book just does all the work for you.
Yeah. What I find exciting about this approach is that it's it's dependent mostly on time. It is investing your time rather than necessarily all of your money. And I think that that really kind of does equal the playing field quite a bit. Now it's not a matter of like, okay, well, I come from a rich family, so I can be successful in my business. Sure, maybe you can, but on the other hand, you can come from pretty much nothing, but if you are very good at what you do and very helpful to other people, you can make a go of this, right?
Yeah, the work will speak for itself.
Hmm.
Um, this isn't to say that someone will start out and they're a decent writer to begin with. I have certainly improved in my writing career. I can look back at what I originally wrote and went, God, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I wrote that. Sorry. And approach it from an apologetic type of perspective. But it's a season that I was in at the time,
Yeah.
and it was with the knowledge that I had amassed at the time, with the technique and skill and approach that I had amassed at the time. But boy, when you master your craft and you start putting out even better stuff, you're just gonna reinforce that fandom, if you will, of people who go, God, and his books are getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I've got voracious, rabid readers who are like, dude, when's your next book coming out? Or why haven't you written a sequel to this series? Because I love this series and these characters. Uh, it's really cool. It's a really cool thing. And the other thing that I really love about what I do is I get to leave a legacy, a trail of memories and
Mm.
storytelling that
Hmm.
will sell for all time. And I just love leaving a legacy of storytelling that way.
That's awesome. Well, and I mean that does also like one of the things about getting good at anything is you got to be okay with not being good at it first, right?
Yeah.
And I mean I think that that's a real big barrier, especially to adults, right? I think that like if you start when you're a kid, like I think that my impression anyway is that that's why people who have been doing something since they were a kid tend to be very, very good at it, and it tends to be that people that start when they're an adult and never follow through. But that's because I think as a kid, you're expected to not be good. You're a kid. Nobody,
Yeah.
no, like, but as an adult, imagine you're in your 20s and you decide to start writing. I mean, hey, I mean, let me ask you that. Like, do you think someone who starts writing later in life can end up being a best-selling author?
Well, that's certainly true of me. Yes, I would say an emphatic yes, because that is my story. I started, my very first story I wrote, if you want to call it that, was in 1981, a second grade assignment with Mrs. Walker. Hi, Mrs. Walker. And that was just, construction paper and three-hole punch college rule paper, crude stick figure drawings. And seriously, the book was like a complete and blatant ripoff of Alan Dean Foster's novelization of E.T. I called it The Electric Boy, but there are some parts I seriously stole. Um, so I don't really, I mean, I count it as my first story that I wrote, but I did not enter full-time authoring until really 2017. And by that time I can't add, no one said there'd be math. I was in my 40s.
Okay.
Um, but but that was, nonfiction business books as a voiceover artist. Now I'm a full-time author, and the first book in the voiceover series became a bestseller. Dissonance Volume 1 became a bestseller. The End Volume 1 became a bestseller. The Phoenix Experiment became a bestseller. Do they still reside in that number one spot? No, but they did hit it, and they are still selling well. Volume 1 reality of Dissonance has been adapted for the screen, and it's currently being actively pitched to streaming networks. So, boy, if that gets picked up, look for the books to just skyrocket again. And I started later in life.
Hmm.
So I evolved. You do evolve from whenever you start. I envy the people that have been writing their whole life, because I danced around in a lot of creative pursuits before I returned. I really envy those people that have been lifelong authors, because they just grow and grow and grow, and
Yeah.
they've surpassed me. But you can put the pedal to the metal later in life and evolve faster yourself too.
So then looking back, you said that you're a little bit embarrassed, I guess, about your first book, right? But at the time that you wrote it, did you know that it was like what did you feel about it at that time?
So we're not talking about the Electric Boy in second
No,
grade,
no, no.
right?
I mean your first
Okay.
published book. Yeah, yeah.
I have grace for that little guy. He was 7. Come on.
Yes, of course.
Or 8, whatever it was. Yeah, I think that um, ultimately, I'm not embarrassed is the right word in some senses of the book, but I do reread it. I do go back and revisit it. I have to,
Mhm.
because at the advice of my screenwriter, should this get picked up, should it get optioned or bought, the screenplay, they're gonna know my story inside and out, and I need to know it better than they do. So
Right.
I'm still rereading that story. Um, I do find parts where I just go, holy cow, that was so well written. And in some respects, there are sections in Dissonance Volume 1 Reality, my first, return foray into fiction, that trounce uh, uh, Talisman Nexus, which is my most recently published book. So there are nuggets in here that are higher and more perfected craft than more recent works, and vice versa. It's kind of a give and take thing, and I'm okay with it overall.
Yeah.
Embarrassed, maybe at some respects, some senses of it, but overall, I'm darn proud of how it
Good.
turned out and how it performed.
Good, good. Yeah, because I know that like I mean if we compare it to music, I know when because I started playing music late in life as well. Actually, I was in my 20s when I even picked up a guitar for the first time and at the beginning of it, I knew I wasn't that good. But I
Yeah,
thought but I was able to get through the songs and people seemed to be enjoying it and I was having fun. So I just kept on doing it. But one of the things that I think when you look back is that if you don't know any better, sometimes you'll make choices that someone who knows better wouldn't have made, right? Like you're not in that
yeah,
box, right? And I
yeah.
think that might be maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe some of the parts you're like, wow, that's exceptionally well written because you didn't know any better at the time. It was just you were writing something that was special at that time, right?
Yeah, it's just all comes from inspiration, right? So
Hmm.
if you are particularly inspired in chapter 4, not so much inspired in chapter 3, there will be a noticeable strain
Ah,
of something that happens. One chapter might appear somewhat monotony. And isn't this an allegory for life too? Is like you go through
yeah.
seasons of your life where it's just kind of the grind and the hustle, and or the boredom, whatever. You're just getting a paycheck. And then, you jump into self-employment, and I'm just going to share, I'm in an 880 square foot shop that used to be concrete and framing. And if I change my background, will you be able to see?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let me change this really quick. So we changed this, and all you're seeing right now is this is my voiceover. This is my office, and then behind me is my voiceover booth, and it
Okay.
is top of the line. And then over there, through this door right over here, is 2/3 of the shop, which is exercise and rec and TV and exercise equipment, blah blah blah, play area for the kids. This all came from a dream of souping up this whole place and making it my own. It's a
Wow.
detached garage. And I love, love, love coming out to what we call Bubby Town Studios. We call it that because we have 2 kids who are our bubbies. They're these guys right here. And I love coming out here and getting to do my thing and seeing that thing result in dollars in this checkbook
Uh,
that then pays our mortgage. It's like it's such a dream, and nobody can take it from me. I love that.
I love that too. I love that too. That's why this podcast exists. I want to inspire more people to do that because it is special. It is a different thing that no one can take it from. Like that's the best part is that when I was working in a cubicle, it was just, okay, well, I'm employed for the next 2 weeks. I don't know. I have no control over what's
Yeah,
going on. I mean, they could have just decided that we're not going to do business anymore and off I go. Like But this is us. Like this is, yes, it's hard, but you're so much more appreciative, I guess, of what you're accomplishing when you know that it's you that got out of bed and created something from nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before. I'll say it again. You rise and fall on your own merits.
Mm,
You're not dependent on someone else's handout, and not to put a negative spin on it, because a paycheck is a paycheck and it's a blessing
absolutely.
and it pays your bills. But you're also not fighting for their dream. And that is the biggest kicker. You fight for your own dream.
Yeah.
And this is my dream out here. I would hate to lose this. I'd be so I'd be, despondent to lose this, to see my dream not work out and we have to, sell this and move. So I fight and I work hard and I do my best and I explore new entrepreneurial pursuits to, to supplement. But overall, the dominating force out here is just the sheer art of creation. And it has been music out here. I've produced several CDs on this very tower and this very screen. Um, it's voiceovers right now back there. It's authoring, and it's all marketing for all of them right here. But it's all creation, and I just love it.
I love that. That's so awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your learning journey. Like how do you, get your information? Like do you have mentors or coaches or anything like that? Or
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a mentee of so many authors who don't even know who I am, and that's totally fine. But I study their works and I learn how they write and I see what they do. My mind was blown by, for example, Suzanne Collins' Sunrise on the Reaping. I love the Hunger Games quadrilogy, the movies, love the books, but she's always written first person present tense. I have traditionally written first person past tense, and so I walked to the door. I said. Instead, now it's I walk to the door, I say.
oh,
And it's a totally different, it's a huge shifting of gears. But she also incorporated some incredibly beautiful prose and poetry in Sunrise on the Reaping. I am a poet. I've put together a book of poetry that has won some laurels. I love what I wrote. I've just never incorporated it into my work. So for the Phoenix experiment, it was the very first book that I decided to undertake first person present tense and also incorporate some poetry. Um, so if I ever met her, I would say, man, you absolutely inspired me. That's authoring. In voiceovers, I still love to this day and keep in touch with a man who is a wonderful voiceover coach. He is incredibly talented. He is incredibly enthusiastic about coaching, and his name is Scott Burns, established voiceover artist. He's the voice of first North American voice of Bowser in Super Mario Brothers, and I knew him on a first name basis. We'd go to lunch together. Wonderful guy. And I learned from the best because he is such a giver, and my love language is giving. So Scott taught me a lot about what kind of equipment I should do, what kind of reads I should, or equipment I should get, what kind of reads I should do, red flags to look out for, where to market, what demos to produce, what genres to dive into for voiceovers. So, man, I've learned so much from so many people, but they're incredibly helpful.
wow.
Coaching is indispensable in any industry, any creative pursuit that you do. Coaching is indispensable.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the greats have coaches, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
way it works, right? Do you have you found it difficult to find someone that wants to help you?
In voiceovers, no, because I was lucky enough to know a local colleague who many years before I found out that he was in voiceovers. I reached out to him, and we went to school together. So he remembered me. But and I said that in my introductory email to him, do you remember me? And he said, yeah, I remember you. Talk to Scott Burns. That was like
Uh-huh.
all he wrote. And I went, oh, okay. I don't know Scott Burns. I wrote you. May I talk to you, please? And it was crickets. But he's not a coach. It's not his desire to be a coach.
Yeah.
And so he knew in his wisdom that Scott Burns loves coaching. And so I was so grateful for that handoff, referral to Scott. So that was lucky in voiceovers. In authoring, it's a little bit harder, but I think we have great communities intact on Facebook and the Authors Guild and Reddit that you can easily draw upon so many who have. I mean, I just published my 41st book. I'm certainly a seasoned, prolific writer. I have a lot to offer. There's several way beyond me who have, lots to offer on pros and cons of the industry, things to look out for, suggested courses of action, blah, blah, blah.
Wow. Well, I mean, they do say that you learn a lot from teaching too, right? So it can be a
Yeah,
benefit to you to even be the mentor, right?
absolutely. You learn things even as you go teaching.
Hmm.
A teacher should be learning, right?
Yeah.
You kind of like, I think Ray Kroc from McDonald's said, when you stop learning, your room temperature or something like that. Um, and you have to continue to learn even as you're teaching, because otherwise you're going to grow stale.
Mm.
Trends change, the industry changes. Look what's happened to voiceovers in the past 2-3 years, even authoring in the past 2-3 years, and you have to stay fresh, and up to date on those things.
Okay. Well, let's get into that then. So it's time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business.
What's exciting is every single new project I undertake.
Mm.
I reverse engineer my books. So I will design the cover first, and that gives me an idea for a story because I'm very visually inspired. So that's very backwards from the way a lot of people approach it. They'll get an idea for a story, they'll write the story, and then, okay, now I need a cover to reflect the story.
Right.
Well, I keep the cover, right here in front of me, as I'm writing the story, because I want to work towards that goal, and I want to see my story reflect a great cover. You can certainly go either way, but every story that I write is exciting to me. Every new trilogy that is complete, and I'm approaching that point with the third installment in the Talisman series. That's so exciting because then it means I've got a trilogy now, not just one book, not just two, it's three. It's a set, and now I can do a box set. I can design that. Now I can do an all-in-one version. For example, if I can show this, I have a trilogy set of my The End series, and
Uh-huh.
it's got all three volumes in here. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I have to hold it in front of me, I guess. So there's that one.
Yeah.
And then what I also did is I did a complete box, all-in-one hardcover version. So
Wow.
this is basically all three of those books in one hardcover edition. And then I did an all-in-one paperback box set,
Wow,
right?
that's awesome.
I love these different versions that you can end up creating because everybody's different. That's why you have like 20 different iPhones, each year. And that's exciting to me, is just completing a trilogy. I'm super excited about the screenplay for Dissonance Volume 1 Reality being adapted and being pitched to streaming networks. I'm super excited for the screenplay for Forecast and The End, winning entrance into film festivals and winning awards. It's such a great time to be alive and be a writer right now.
I agree. I agree. Well, I mean, so I know we touched on a little bit of the AI type stuff throughout this. How do you see that changing things? And do you see a silver lining to it for writers and even voiceover?
No, I don't see a silver lining at this point. I think, as a voiceover artist, and I can see it from dual tracks, as this dual
Yep.
storyteller, as a voiceover artist, it has completely eroded our income substantially.
Yeah.
It has, because it's so easy for things like, Speechalo and Speech Ocean and Revoicer and all of those different pieces of software that you can spend $49 on for a lifetime membership, plug in what you want it to say, it spits out the voice. Hey, we don't need to hire a voice actor for, $3,000 for a yearly national TV commercial. I
Yep.
get the financial draw there, but it has purged me, unwillingly, of wonderful, long-standing relationships. I've been dropped from rosters because they're just using AI now. The video producers I worked with have themselves been dropped because their higher ups said, we'll just have AI make it. And so we've been affected, they've been affected. That's hurt.
Yeah.
Um, in authoring, it's really affected the content and the quality of the content because of quote unquote AI slop, and people throwing things up into the marketplace that Chat GPT has generated, and they put their name on it, and they didn't write a thing. And they
Hmm.
go to Mid Journey and develop a cover, and they didn't design that either, but they call themselves an author. And it's like, people usually can detect what is and is not produced by AI. in many senses.
Yes.
So it's hard for the dilution of the offerings, both in voiceovers and authoring. It's hard to see that dilution. So I don't see a silver lining yet, and I don't use AI tools other than maybe uh, Microsoft Word tools. I'm a dinosaur. I use Microsoft Word, spell check, and thesaurus and things like that. And then what is the other one that I use? Sorry, there is one that I use called Quillbot for if I want to paraphrase something that I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I write everything right out of here. I don't use AI to generate any form of any of my narrative because I want it to come from me and be an accurate reflection of my soul, not a
Yeah.
CPU.
Yeah, I think that for voiceovers, yeah, it's rough. I can't imagine there being a turnaround there. But for authoring, on the other hand, and even for music, because we come up across it with music quite a bit as well, right? I do think that in the short term, for sure, the AI cannot be creative. It is just taking what's already been done and regurgitating it in a way.
Yeah,
And I've read plenty of AI stuff, and the best stuff that you can read by AI, and even that I can generate when I use AI, is by teaching it how to talk like me, which means it's my creativity that's doing it in the first place. So it needs like a creative engine in order to do it. I hope that what'll end up happening is that there'll be a little bit of a turmoil, and then the real creative, the real actual people that are writing, the real people that are writing real music will sort of just jump ahead of all that stuff. And I do think that that's what people want. People want to feel something, and AI
yeah,
can't make them feel anything. It's just regurgitating, right? So
yeah,
I hope.
yeah. And I mean, there's so many moral arguments to be made on either
Yeah.
side, and one of the main things that you constantly hear is that it is done without the consent of the original creator. So
Oh,
you see things like, granted, you could go see Alien Romulus, and you can see Ian Holm as I forget what his name was, but the Ash android with a different name, and Ian Holm was deceased, so he can't possibly consent to his likeness being put into a new film. His estate did, his family did, and I suspect there's a financial incentive there,
oh yeah.
but it's something that he can no longer consent to. The same thing is true with authoring and voiceovers. I know a colleague whose voice was stolen from her. She had a client or she had a project with Chinese Institute of Acoustics. And before she knew it, they sold her recordings to TikTok. And so friends were
Wow.
saying, "Hey, Bev, is this you? I mean, this is gross. What they're saying is this sounds like you." Bev was like, "That is me." And she filed a lawsuit. They ended up settling, but again, without her consent.
Wow.
Scarlett Johansson, her voice was taken from her and made into an AI voice, and she's litigating that without her consent. I can only shudder and think, what of my works are making their way into AI software and algorithms in order to be recreated without my consent? And that's just deeply frustrating. So I would
Yeah.
love to see some legislation. It's a
Yes.
wild west right now. It's a
Yes.
huge
Agree.
wild west. I'd love to see some legislation that just reins in this wild west and puts some guardrails around it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, I mean, this whole AI thing, I believe, I actually not even, I think it actually is an experiment. I think they've said that. Like, even ChatGPT, when it first got put out, they just kind of threw it out there and see what happens. And there are some major harms coming out of it. And I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's crazily irresponsible to unleash something like that onto the public without having any, but I mean, that's the way the world works for the most part. They
yeah,
unleash something on us, and then the laws come afterwards, going like, "Hey, that's actually kind of harmful. Let's pull that back a little bit." But
right.
so I think we are going to have a little bit of a correction in the next few years, but I hope it's going to come out good in the end.
I hope so too. And I think, the Super Bowl commercial, the one where they had all of the stars from the sitcoms together, and they de-aged them.
Oh yeah,
A greater example would be Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford in the latest Indiana Jones movie, and they did a flashback scene with him completely de-aged. Looks very credible, but you can tell it's AI
you
generated. There's
can,
just
yeah.
those little nuances. especially in the eyes or like six fingers, um, melted face here and there.
Yeah.
Uh, but discounting that, there is an entertainment value behind it, which to some extent I'm okay with, as long as those people had given their consent, again, which is
Yeah.
so huge.
Yeah.
Um, if it was done with their consent, they were okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. So one last question. Let's get into the music a little bit. Who's your favorite rock star?
I have a few, and they span a few different genres. I really love Alanis Morissette. I
Mhm.
always have. I think speaking of evolution, we talked about, she has absolutely evolved.
Yeah.
Um, I love her song "Empathy." Is one of my favorite songs of her, in praise of the vulnerable man. The early stuff, "Hand in My Pocket." I love her. She's enormously talented. Gavin DeGraw has always been a favorite. Fire, his roller derby inspired song "Fire," such a great tune. I love. I was going to say "Five for Fighting." For King and Country, Christian
Okay.
rock band. I love their stuff, especially a song called "Fight On Fighter." An amazing tune, a little repetitive, but man, it drives the point home, and so good. So those are my three that I'll usually cite. But you're talking to a guy who grew up almost exclusively liking Michael Jackson, uh, and could dance like him. I
Oh,
mean,
oh
it
yeah.
was. I don't quite have the form anymore, but yeah, those are my top three.
Awesome. Yeah, Alanis. Wow. Well, she's Canadian, and she actually released something. I don't know if you ever looked at it, but she released a song called "Too Hot." I don't
Oh
even know
yeah,
if
I
you could
know.
find it. Oh yeah, that
Yep,
that was crazy stuff. Way back
yep. It
when.
was her early, very early stuff.
Yeah, that was before
Yeah,
Jacket Little Pill. Yeah, that's
yep.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Aaron. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. Seriously, thanks for having me on. I'm very grateful.
Awesome. And to the listeners, make sure you go to work@homerockstar.com for more information. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.